Hi, this is Morgan and
Mia.
from Shelbyville, Kentucky, and you're listening to Scandal Water.
Baby, go!
Can you say Derby?
Derby.
Welcome to Scandal Water, where the tea is hot and the conversation lively.
Your hosts, Candy
And Ashley
will discuss a peculiar story somehow related to the entertainment industry. This podcast might not change the world, but it just might satisfy your thirst for an intriguing tale.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1. Stories and scandal water, it's where you need to be. Stories and scandal water, let's pour you a cup of tea.
Morning, Ashley.
Good morning. Good windy morning.
It is a windy morning.
Yes.
It was so pretty as I was driving in. I didn't even notice it, but now as we're sitting in your library, I'm hearing a little bit of, what would you call that, gusting against the windows?
I said it sounds like the day we did the Chadwick Boseman episode. Remember, it was really
yeah.
gusty that day.
Yeah. Well, if you will bear with me, I'm going to start this episode in a slightly different way.
Ooh.
Is that all right?
That is absolutely all right.
Okay.
They're off in the Kentucky Derby.
Based on our topic today, I thought that was a very appropriate
It
way to
is.
start. Do you know what that's actually called?
The call to race it? The call to
Call to the post.
Call to the post.
Yes, guys, I looked this up. I did not know this off the top of my head, but turns out that that is the official name of it, the call to the post. And what I was playing there was actually a short YouTube clip from the Kentucky Derby website, and it showed Steve Buttleman, who is the official bugler for Churchill Downs, and he has been such since 1996.
Nice.
Yes, that was him performing live at the start of the 139th Kentucky Derby.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I don't know if you could see this. Were you watching, Ashley? Could you tell what he was wearing?
Yeah, he had on the red jacket and white pants.
Yes, if you guys are not familiar, there is an official uniform for the bugler. Red coat, black cap, white pants that are tucked into boots. So Steve was wearing that, and I discovered that this Call to the Post song is not played exclusively for the Derby, but of course most of us associate it with the Derby because so many of us watch it, or some people are there in person, obviously. And so I thought, if this is such an important song that is used to start every race, actually.
Let's start the podcast
Why
with it.
not start
Let's
this way?
start it.
So with this being a special year, this is the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby, we decided we not only wanted to do this special variety episode, which breaks outside the theme for May. The rest of the episodes, guys, you're going to have so much fun with this.
Much fun.
We are taking a little trip through the decades. You will love it. But this particular episode is Go Baby Go, 150 years of the Kentucky Derby, and because of timing with the Kentucky Derby coming up.
First Saturday in May.
Right. We're breaking all the rules.
It's our show. We do what we want. We can do whatever we want.
So if you're listening to this right now, you've already figured out that we did not wait to release it on Tuesday as we normally do, because then it would have been after the event, right? After the fact. So just know you won't be seeing another episode on Tuesday. This is it. Okay? Well, Ashley, I thought I would ask, as a Kentucky native, what is your experience with the Derby? Have you ever been in person?
I have not been in person, because can you imagine, with my massive anxiety around crowds, how I would feel being at the Derby? But I do love watching it on television. I try to watch it every single year. When I can't, we listen to it on the radio if we're doing something with theater or something like that. I do really enjoy listening to it and getting into the excitement of it.
Absolutely. Are you celebrating any of the hoopla leading into the Derby? Do you get caught up in any of the, do you go to any of the events?
No, don't go to any of the events, but I do try to watch the Thunder Thunder over Louisville,
Yes.
when that, I do enjoy watching that too.
Yes.
On the television.
Well, I have actually been to Thunder in person.
Yeah.
And I have been as a participant at the Derby twice. I went to the infield. Both times I was either in college or it was right after college. So, young person with some friends. And I will say it was very interesting. You talked about crowds.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, are there
Yeah.
crowds?
Yeah.
One time it was so hot that I was wearing summer clothing and I had a sunburn at the end of it.
Yeah.
The other time it was uncharacteristically cold.
Yeah.
I froze.
Yeah.
And I remember this so distinctly because I'd ridden with a friend and this was right either in college or right after because she dropped me off at my house and I could not wait to get into my home and try to thaw out.
Yeah.
And my mom had not come home from work yet and I'd forgotten my key. So I had to sit outside on my front porch stoop until she got home. I was freezing.
Hot shower for you.
Yeah. I actually also worked a booth one time inside the Derby. Yes, what happened was my friend's husband worked for a company that wanted to raise money for a charity. So apparently, you can probably still do this, but back at this time, if a company would man one of these booths, this particular one was selling mint juleps. If you would man the booth, they would give money to you and then you could give it to a charity.
Oh, that's nice.
And they were short. They were short on volunteers. So my friend was like, hey, please, we need some extra help. I ended up working this booth. All I recall is perfectly pleasant day. I like to stay busy. Boy, did I stay busy.
Yeah.
And it was a wall of bodies all day long. We were under a tent and I remember hardly ever being able to see beyond like 4 or 5 feet ahead of me because it was always people, just constantly.
Did you see
all
anybody
day long.
famous?
I did not. They weren't in the infield.
Oh, you were in the infield doing the booth. Oh, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I also know that around Derby time, if you try to fly into Louisville the day before, way expensive, and fly out the day after, way expensive.
If you are from out of town and you are not familiar with the phenomenon of Derby,
Yeah.
you might be surprised at how much it does impact the people
Yes.
around here. I have several friends who actually rent their homes.
Yeah, or they rent their yards for parking.
Yes, 100%. My son now lives in St. Louis. He's coming in with his girlfriend for Thunder. Like, it's a big deal.
It's a very big deal.
Yeah,
They've
very-
done a good job in making it a nice tourist attraction.
100%. And something that a lot of Kentuckians and Indiana residents, people who are local, feel very proud of.
They do.
Well, hopefully by the time we finish this episode, if you don't already know a lot about the Derby, you will know a whole lot more. I had a lot of fun with this.
Good.
I did. I had a lot of fun with this. Because, again, this is a special year. One thing I discovered was just how much Churchill Downs has been pulling out the stops to make sure that this particular running is going to be so exceptional. In preparation for this historic 150th Run for the Roses, a huge project has been underway to expand Churchill Downs, which, by the way, is a National Historic Landmark.
Oh, yeah.
According to Kentucky Monthly Magazine, this is a direct quote, a $200 million redesign to the saddling paddock, where the spirited 3-year-olds are held before the race, has been underway for more than a year. This treasured area of the track will more than double in size, expanding from 5,000 to 12,000 square feet.
That's a big expansion.
It is. The stalls will be moved beneath the twin spires for what will surely become an iconic view. It goes on to say the expansion creates 3,600 premium seats and adds space for 3,250 standing room only ticket holders. New club spaces and high-end dining options promise to enhance the Derby Day festivities. And I saw a different article that expanded on telling us about one of those new high-end dining options. Apparently there's a new Club SI, which is this new space, a partnership between Churchill Downs and Sports Illustrated that's going to be very, very swanky.
I
Yeah,
bet.
if you can afford to go there.
I cannot. I shall never see it.
Also, the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby will feature the richest purse in race history.
What?
A record $5 million.
Oh, my goodness.
I thought it would be fun to start with a few Derby fast facts.
Lay 'em on me.
Do you know how it came up with the name Run for the Roses?
Somebody had an excess of roses, and they said, that'll do. I don't know.
Love it.
Because you know how stuff always has this like innocuous beginning. It's like, how did that get started? Well, I had that, and it just sort of spiraled from there.
Well, I'm sure you do know it's part of the reason is that the winner nowadays does receive a garland of roses,
yes,
obviously.
yes.
But according to the Twin Spires website, the red rose did not become the official flower of the Kentucky Derby until 1904. And that actual term of run for the roses was not coined until 1925 when New York sports columnist Bill Coram used the term to describe the race. They gave the very first garland in 1932, still given today. And have you ever had a chance to go and see it being made?
No, I have not, but I know you can go.
You can go and watch it. I have not seen it in person. I've seen it on TV, but they use approximately...
Isn't it at Kroger?
Yes, it is.
That's what I thought.
400 roses used by Kroger employees every year to make it, and they are like particular. If those roses are not good enough, they are put aside, and they have a whole other process what they do with those roses that were not good enough. But as part of the design, there is a crown of roses added to the garland, which symbolizes the heart and struggle required to be a Kentucky Derby champion. Yeah. So speaking of weather, I gave you my example. The coldest weather for a Kentucky Derby has occurred twice in 1940 and 1957 when it was 36 degrees.
See, Candy, you weren't there then.
I know.
What are you complaining
See,
about?
Right? I mean, come on. The hottest Kentucky Derby was in 1959 when it hit 94 degrees.
Wait, what was the coldest? They were both in the 50s.
36 degrees. It was 1940 and 1957, 36 degrees.
Wow. And 2 years later, in 59, it was how much?
94.
Dude, Kentucky is whack.
It really is.
We have whack weather. I have family that has called us in years previous. They've called us the day of and said, what's the weather like there? Because that will influence who they place a bet on. Who runs well on a wet track,
really?
who runs well on a dry track. They say they want to know, like, from people there, what's the weather like?
Isn't that interesting?
It is, yeah.
These people know a lot more
They
than I
do.
do about
They do.
things like
I
that.
choose based on the name.
Or how frisky they seem.
Yeah, they seem like they're going to have a good time.
Well, adjacent to the Derby, we have the Kentucky Oaks.
Yes.
I thought I would tell you just a tiny bit about that. That is a race involving 3-year-old fillies, traditionally held the Friday before Derby. It is also one of the longest continually held sporting events in American history because it started the same year as Derby and was organized by the same person who founded the Derby.
Nice.
And is also one of the only horse races to take place at its original site where it first started.
It's fillies for the lilies or something like that. Lilies for the fillies, something.
Something that started 16 years ago that I think is very moving is the Survivors Parade, and that celebrates breast and ovarian cancer survivors. Is meant to be an encouragement also to those who are still fighting their cancer battle. And in this parade, they honor 150 survivors and fighters every year by selecting this group of people who get to march on Churchill Downs historic racetrack prior to the running of the Kentucky Oaks.
That's nice.
And then that led me to Derby, which is such a recent thing.
I don't know a lot about this, but I do know the phrase.
Yeah.
The Thursday before the Derby, right?
Right. When we were young, this was not a thing.
No, it was not.
It was not a thing. What happened was, I think in the old days, now this is not something I saw in my research, this is just speaking from experience. I think in the old days, the Kentucky Derby was so big and so highly attended and the prices were high because everybody was coming for that the locals were like, we'll just go to the Oaks. And then the Oaks got so popular and so many people are coming to the Oaks that I think it spilled over into a lot of the locals started coming to the race on the Thursday prior. So prior to 1997, the Thursday before Oaks was not associated with the Derby at all. Then in 1997, they started opening the infield for an event that they called Festival in the Field, where they would have some live entertainment, some kind of little concert with a notable band. Admission was only $2, although it went up to $3 in 2008. But it was something that a lot of people came and enjoyed. It was affordable. It was fun. But again, attendance started growing so much over the years that in 2014, Churchill Downs rebranded that Thursday before Derby as Thurby. They upped their prices at that time to $10 a ticket, and they kind of rebranded it a little bit in terms of upping.
Regulated it, maybe?
Right. It became a little more fashionable, a little less casual, and that's when it became our Thurby as we know it. So another fast fact, the mint julep has been the official drink of the Kentucky Derby since the 1930s, and approximately 120,000 of them are sold at the event every
incredible.
year. Yeah, they are basically just bourbon, simple syrup, and mint over crushed ice.
Wow.
And last one, the weight limit for Kentucky Derby jockeys is 126 pounds, including the saddle.
That's a
That's
light.
tiny.
That's
I know,
tiny.
I
I
know.
remember that reminded me. I meant to look this up and I forgot. But back in the day, we had to write in high school. I think it was high school. We had to write a poem to a sports figure. You know how sporty I am. So you know who I picked? Pat Day.
I knew it.
I sure did.
I knew it.
I sure did. I wrote a poem to Pat Day.
And you sent it?
Oh no, I don't think I did. But
Oh,
I did
okay.
get to meet him.
I've seen him. I didn't get to speak with him. Where did you meet him?
I met him at an antique mall. He was just there signing books. Brian and I were doing something, and we just saw that he was going to be there. So we went in, and he was signing books, and I think I gave him a copy of our first movie, maybe just like, you know,
Yeah.
here. Yeah,
Please watch this.
please watch it if you would like to.
That's awesome. Well, how did it all start? The lead of an article entitled A Landmark Kentucky Derby, which was printed in the Kentucky Monthly magazine, describes the very first Kentucky Derby race, and I loved this little intro, so I'm going to read it to you. On May 17th, 1875, 10,000 cheering horse racing fans at Kentucky's Louisville Jockey Club, now Churchill Downs, marveled as African-American jockey Oliver Lewis brought his chestnut colt Aristides neck and neck with Volcano on the home stretch, the pair surging ahead of the field, lightning fast thoroughbreds. They thundered in tandem at such breakneck speed, it almost seemed they could take flight like the mythical Pegasus. But in the last few strides, Aristides broke away and bolted to victory in the inaugural Kentucky Derby.
Nice. Good description.
I know, I liked it. How did we get to that, though? Here's how it all played out. The Derby was actually the brainchild of Meriwether Lewis Clark Jr., who was the grandson of William Clark of the famous Lewis and Clark expedition, and he was named after William Clark's equally famous partner, Meriwether Lewis.
Yeah, when you first started saying it, Merryweather, I was like, what a pun. Oh, wait, no, you mean Merryweather.
So I thought that's interesting. It all goes back to these fellas who basically paved the way for westward expansion. All right,
Louisville and Clarksville.
yeah. So now here's the grandson. Meriwether Lewis Clark Jr. himself had really, according to the articles I saw, no real interest in racing until he was approached in 1872 by a group of horse breeders who were concerned that this horse racing industry in Louisville was really taking a hit. People were not interested in horse racing anymore. They suggested he was a prominent person, you know, could he help save it?
Take the cause.
Right. And this is according to the Filson Historical Society. Well, this gave him the idea. Okay, maybe they could start a racing club in Louisville. And so he decided to do a little research. He and his wife went over to England and France, and they looked at some different races over there. And in particular, he was impressed with what was happening with the Epsom Derby races in England. Now, they not only paid attention to how the races were run, they paid attention to other things, like how the people were dressed, what kinds of things they drank or ate while they were there.
That it
Just
was an
all of the traditions, basically.
Upscale affair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is actually the reason behind several of our own Kentucky Derby traditions today. Things like wearing your hat, wearing your fancy hat, dressing up, that came directly from their visits to these European countries, seeing what protocols were being used over there. It's like, okay, we'll do the same thing.
We'll copy the Brits.
Exactly. He came back. He decided he would build this racetrack and start this racing club. So he built a track on 80 acres of land leased from his uncles John and Henry Churchill, just 3 miles south of downtown Louisville.
I bet that's Churchill Downs.
According to Churchill Downs. Good inference.
Whew, that wasn't a far leap.
He also raised money by selling membership subscriptions to the track, which again at this point is called the Louisville Jockey Club. So according to Churchill Downs, quote, this profit was used to construct a clubhouse, grandstand, porter's lodge, and 6 stables on site for the opening of the track. Throughout the years, the initial structures still stand.
That's neat.
I know, I love that. But the racetrack has continued to grow and modernize. So the very first Kentucky Derby, as we've already said, was held on May 17th, 1875. It was one of 3 races that were actually held at the Louisville Jockey Club that day. The attendance was reportedly somewhere around 12,000. This little article in the New Orleans Republican at the time reported, quote, "the grandstand being thronged by a brilliant assemblage of ladies and gentlemen."
I would be thrilled if someone came to my first event and there was 12,000
I know.
people there. I would be beyond
What
myself.
a turnout.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we've already said the winner was this chestnut colt named Aristides, and he won by 1/4 length over the second place finisher Volcano. The jockey was Oliver Lewis, who was a 19-year-old black native Kentuckian.
Nice.
Now, this is something that many people may not know. In the first Kentucky Derby, 13 out of the 15 jockeys were black. And in fact, this is something that came up across multiple sources. Nowadays, in the Kentucky Derby, there are actually very few black jockeys, and this
Really?
is something that they feel has been a forgotten part of history. But of the first 28 Derby winners, 15 of them were ridden by black jockeys. In these multiple articles and news clips I saw, and including that same Kentucky Monthly article that I've already mentioned, they kept talking about the important contributions and the legacy of Kentucky's black equestrians. This article, the Kentucky Monthly one, says, quote, "who dominated the sport in the latter half of the 19th century. They worked as jockeys, breeders, trainers, and grooms, and were considered some of the best horsemen in the world. Over time, black jockeys were forced off the track, and for decades, their contributions to the sport were forgotten." So the article goes on to mention that there is a Black Heritage in Racing exhibit in the Derby Museum, and one of the men honored there is Isaac Murphy, who was not only the first jockey to win 3 Kentucky Derbies in 1884, 1890, and 1891, but also a jockey who won, they refer to this as an amazing 44% of all the races he ever rode,
Whoa.
which is a record that is still
Whoa.
unmatched to this day.
That's amazing.
I know. I love that. Over the years, obviously, there have been many changes. We've already referred to the expansions. But the Kentucky Derby is now considered to be the longest continually run sporting event in America and is commonly referred to as the most exciting 2 minutes in sports or the fastest 2 minutes in sports. It's held the first Saturday in May. It is run on a dirt racetrack at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky, which is where it has been, as we just said, from the very beginning, even though the name changed. The race is open to a field of 20 3-year-old colts. Both male and female horses are eligible. But one change is, while the very first Kentucky Derby was 1.5 miles in length, in 1896, it was shortened to 1.25 miles because they felt like the longer distance was too long for
Too long.
3-year-olds to run that early in the
and
spring.
that fast.
Yeah. A few other changes or evolutions that have happened along the way. We had the signature twin spires added to Churchill Downs in 1895. It took until 1970 before we had our first female jockey. And the attendance, of course, has grown and grown and grown. We said that the first one had about 12,000 people. More than 150,000 people typically attend the Derby in person now, while millions watch it on TV.
That is a lot of people. That's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people. Well, before we go on, why don't we take a quick break?
Let's do it. There's not much we love more than spilling the tea with you every Tuesday. So we've decided to start every month by thanking a few of our supporters who help make this possible.
Along with the fun, producing a weekly podcast also brings with it more time and expense than you might expect. Your financial generosity in becoming a member through Buy Me a Coffee, a very simple link found on our website, allows us to keep creating these episodes.
We'd like to extend our deepest gratitude to 2 of our current members, Laura A. and Jennifer M. As a thank you to them, and to anyone else who supports Scandal Water by becoming a member on Buy Me a Coffee, these ladies will receive perks like discounts on merch and access to exclusive bonus content such as our mini-sodes.
We'll be back the first week of next month to acknowledge and celebrate more members. If you'd like to hear your name on that list, visit us at www.scandalwaterpodcast.com.
Until then, we lift our cup to you, Laura and Jennifer. Cheers!
And we're back.
Yes, and I told Candy that I was going to go try to find this poem that I wrote, and I actually located it. So I think I was in middle school. Here we go. 2-pat day. When the gate breaks open and my horse runs free, only thing I'm thinking is about the finish line and me. Sun's beating down, winds whipping by, but our stride so smooth we could sprout wings and fly.
Ooh.
We'll run for the roses, even if we go from east to west. But when we pass the finish first, that means we've outdone all the rest.
Wow.
There you go.
There. 2-pat day.
2-pat day by Ashley Raymer Brown. There it was.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And it rhymes.
It did. Oh yeah, it was a poem. It was
We're
a
not gonna
straight
go
up
free
poem.
verse.
No,
It's
no,
like-
no. That's a straight up poem, man.
Love it. Well,
Yep.
that was a great way to come back from break. And this leads directly into the next little piece I'm going to share.
Yeah.
What I thought I would hit on now.
Uh-huh.
We've kind of talked about the history of the actual Derby itself. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of trivia here and there.
Oh, you know I love some trivia.
Starting with famous jockeys.
Would Pat Day be one of them?
He did not make this particular
What?
list. What I looked up specifically was most winning
Oh, poor Pat.
Kentucky Derby jockeys. Found out that there were two fellas who tied for most Kentucky Derby wins, both of them with 5 each.
Hey, that's pretty good.
It is very good. Bill Hartack, his wins occurred, by the way, in the 1950s and 60s, and Eddie Arcaro, whose wins occurred in the 30s through the 50s. Again, both of those guys had 5 wins each, but Eddie is also the only jockey to win the Triple Crown twice, which he did.
That's impressive.
I know, which he did aboard Whirlaway and Citation. Whirlaway was 1941 and Citation was 1948. Super impressive. The runner-up was Bill Shoemaker with the second most Derby wins, 4. He also happens to be the oldest jockey to win the Derby when he was 54 years old, riding Ferdinand back in 1986.
Wow.
I know. Now, famous horses.
I was going to say, you got to talk about those horses.
Get ready for some controversy.
Oh, my goodness.
Because some people listening, I know, are going to be mad.
Oh, dear.
All right. I looked on the Twin Spires website, and there's a fella. Now, mind you, this poor fella himself said, this is subjective. I know not everybody's going to agree with me, but he was trying to name the top 10 racehorses of all time. He clarified in his article that he had to narrow the focus a bit. So he said, really, you're probably looking at the top 10 best U.S. flat racers of all time. And he said he tried to do it by basing this only on data from their wins and accomplishments.
Okay.
Here's his top 10
Let's
list.
have it.
Okay. Number 10, Native Dancer, born 1950. Number 9, John Henry, born 1975. Number 8, Forgo, born 1970. Number 7, Spectacular Bid, born 1976. Number 6, Affirmed, born 1975. Number 5, Citation, born 1945. Number 4, Man of War.
Okay. I think there's something really cool
Okay.
about him. Let me
Yeah.
look it up real fast.
By the way, he was born 1917.
Okay, it says Man of War was a star off the track as well. He sired 64 champions,
Oh my goodness.
including War Admiral,
Yes,
the
that is him.
1937 Triple Crown winner, and he was Seabiscuit's grandfather.
Seabiscuit.
Yep.
I read a book about Seabiscuit, and there was a movie.
Brian was supposed to be in that movie. He was an extra. He died in 1948 of a heart attack. He and War Admiral are buried side by side in Kentucky Horse Park. But anyway, yeah, Brian is a extra in Seabiscuit, but we tried to find him and we couldn't find him.
Couldn't find him.
Yeah,
but he was there.
He was there. He did do the work.
Awesome. Well, number 3 is Kelso, born 1957. And here's where I was shocked because I just knew this was going to be number 1. Number 2, Secretariat, born 1970. Yes. So
So is Seabiscuit number 1?
Seabiscuit did not make the
Is
list.
that the controversy?
Well, I thought it would be controversial that Secretariat was not number 1. I thought it would be controversial that Seabiscuit is not mentioned at all.
Yeah.
Like there were some names that I just expected
Yeah.
to see, but what do I know really
Right,
about horse
right,
racing?
right.
But because I was interested in Secretariat, I paused here to actually look up a little bit more about this particular horse. Here you go. Just a little bit about Secretariat. So Secretariat was the first ever to win the Derby in under 2 minutes.
That's phenomenal.
I know. In fact, according to the Twin Spires article that I read, they said, quote, the legendary Secretariat set still standing stakes records in all 3 legs of the 1973 Triple Crown. And a side note is that Secretariat is nicknamed Big Red because of the color of his coat. But that's what I remembered was that he was a record setter and that he was just so fast, and then he did it in the Triple Crown too. So number 1, never heard of number 1 before.
Who was number 1?
Dr. Fager. I'll go ahead ahead and tell you about number one because you always like to know.
I do. Yeah, I always know, like, that's my next one. What about number one?
So the reporter writing this article actually listed several of Dr. Fager's achievements, but here's the little paragraph he wrote that I thought helped to explain why he chose this horse as his number one. Quote, voted champion sprinter in 1967, Dr. Fager enjoyed his greatest season in 1968 when he went 7 for 8 and earned an unprecedented 4 championship titles: Horse of the Year, Champion Handicap Horse, Champion Sprinter, and Champion Grass Horse. No horse before or since has won a similar variety
I mean,
of
that's pretty
titles.
impressive.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could see his justification.
Doc, we got you.
So I'm going with you. Well, and speaking of famous horses, here's a related side note. The 2022 Derby winner, Rich Strike, was the longest shot to win the Derby in over 100 years, and the second longest shot in Derby history. So the only horse that beat him was Donna Rail, who won the 1913 Kentucky Derby at a 91 to 1 odds rating, if that's the right way
Wow.
to phrase that. Yeah, I thought that was
That's pretty cool.
pretty cool. Okay, so last little section here that I wanted to talk about. Again, if you live in Kentucky, the Derby is more than just the 2-minute fastest
Yeah.
event in sports history.
Yeah.
It's really all the parties and events and
Which
celebrations.
ties into the
leading
entertainment
up to
side.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we would be here all day if I tried to list
Oh my
everything that
goodness.
goes on. It's actually kind of crazy how much there is. But just to give you an idea, I'm going to hit some different celebrations or events that do take place so that you can have a little bit of a flavor.
And you can plan for next year.
Exactly. The Kentucky Derby Festival is really great at running and offering a huge number of events related to Derby. So it's not just Churchill Downs, which does its own. Churchill Downs offers many itself, but the Kentucky Derby Festival is on it. And one of the things that comes up a lot is their annual Great Steamboat Race.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
slowest race in, in history.
Yes. And they also set up a chow wagon on Waterfront Park. And that is a place where you can go to eat out of the food trucks, listen to live music. Have you been there? It's actually, no, but it can get crowded, but you can go at a time that's not very crowded. I've been there. It was kind
Okay.
of fun.
Okay.
Yeah. And they also offer a mini marathon, unless you want to do the full marathon part. I don't know.
Does Kirk do either of those?
Yes. He has done the mini marathon more times than I can count.
Really?
Oh my goodness. And he is a really great runner, so he has a lot of
Trophies?
yes.
Medals?
I have walked in the mini marathon probably 3 or 4 times.
I would
myself.
limp through the mini marathon.
Yeah, it's really well done. And of course, another thing they do is the hot air balloon race.
Yeah.
And the
I mean,
balloon
do they
glow.
though? It gets canceled
Well, it
every
does.
year because of the weather.
But listen to the wind
I
outside
know,
right
I
now.
know, I
Yeah.
know.
Well, we've already mentioned it, but one of their biggest events is probably Thunder over Louisville. As we're recording this, it's ahead of us. It's coming up this Saturday, the 20th. But by the time you guys hear it, it will be in the past.
in the past.
Yes. It's incredibly impressive. Very professionally done. It's a fireworks show that is coordinated to popular music. Over 500,000 people attend every year, according to most estimates. And so getting home from Thunder is crazy. And I have so many friends who go to like nearby buildings or places and they watch it so they're not in the throng of people, but they're like nearby. People reserve hotel rooms
The year
years,
yeah, they
years in
do.
advance
Yeah.
to have a good sight to watch. Another huge event is the Pegasus Parade. According to the Kentucky Derby Festival website, quote, originating in 1956 on a budget of only $640.
Man.
The Pegasus Parade is the Kentucky Derby Festival's oldest event. Today, the Pegasus Parade is one of the largest in the country, contributing an estimated impact of more than $22 million to the local economy.
They sell Pegasus pins, don't they? And then if
They
you get a
do.
gold one, don't you get free admission? And did you see our friend Maggie got a gold one?
I saw she did. Yes. I was actually, you were right on it. I was leading into that. That is a way that they raise money. You buy a Pegasus pin. Actually, you don't have to have a gold one to get a discount or to get into certain events free.
Okay.
But if you get a gold one, you actually get more perks. But you can also, I think, then enter your name to win some kind of a cash prize. I'm not sure of all the
Nice.
details, but it's really good to get a gold one.
Yeah, it
you
is.
want to do that.
It's like the Willy Wonka golden bar.
Yes. Well, a few more things that I saw. I was doing a little research, a little Googling. Not all of these are directly affiliated with Churchill Downs or the Derby Museum, but here's a little sampling of some of the other parties or events that are listed on the Churchill Downs website. There's a Taste of Derby. Tickets, $400.
What?
Yeah, something that most of you have probably heard of, the very famous Derby party called the Barnstable Brown Gala.
Yeah.
The blurb on the Kentucky Derby website reads, internationally recognized as one of the, quote, 10 best parties in the world.
What?
The Barnstable
Go.
Brown Gala is a star-studded event held at Patricia Barnstable Brown's Hilltop, Louisville mansion. I clicked on that one to see how much a ticket cost, and it just said, email Patricia.
Whoa. Email Patricia directly, and she's
just
going to
ask
say
her.
no.
She's going to say Candy,
No.
sorry.
Candy who?
What?
No.
Yeah. So apparently there is a Phillies and Lilies party, which is an unforgettable night at the Kentucky Derby Museum with live entertainment, an open bar, premium food, and
Open
more.
bar. That is going to be a raucous event.
$600 per person.
What?
They have an Unbridled Eve Derby Gala. They call it a party with a purpose because it benefits numerous charitable causes through their Unbridled Charitable Foundation. So you have a choice. You could go in with just a $400 ticket price if you just want to dance and snack a little bit. Or there's a middle range, and then it goes up to $1,600 if you want to participate in the gourmet meal, open bar, and some of those other
I am
features.
learning that even if I wanted to go, I'm never going to go to
Well, now
any
these-
of this.
these
I know
are
these
very
are the
special
these
things.
are the
Yes,
top tier
yes,
stuff.
Absolutely. And speaking of top tier, one of the reasons why some of these parties are so exclusive and so expensive is because of all the celebrities coming in.
Right.
There are celebrities left and right who come in for the Derby. Just to name a few of the people who have attended in the past, Queen Elizabeth II herself was there at the Derby in 2007 and watched from Millionaire's Row.
Millionaire's Row, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Kim Kardashian has been here, Patrick and Brittany Mahomes, Mary J. Blige, Jack Harlow, Justin Hartley, Chris Pine. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Again, we are recording this a few weeks in advance, so not everything has been revealed, but I have already heard some names associated with our Derby, this 150th Running of the Roses. Some of those are Bruno Mars, Sugar Ray Leonard, Emmett Smith, and model Brooks Hayter. Those are just a few that I've heard so far who have committed
To coming.
and they're associated with some of the events.
Armchair psychologist.
So that brings us to our armchair.
All right.
So we've already said that we enjoy the Derby. We like the excitement that's going on around us. And you know what? I do celebrate certain things. For example, I have a little Derby bracelet.
Yeah.
I walked out without it today, but I've been wearing it for the past
Have
week.
you?
Yes. It was one of those things that's handmade. It was actually being sold to benefit somebody in the community who was going through a sickness. And so the proceeds went to help them. So I bought it like 10 years ago. I wear it all the time. I actually do have a Pegasus pin this year. So
you're
I
ready.
am in the Derby spirit. I'm not
Yeah.
going to lie.
Yeah.
Researching this episode definitely helped me with that.
And it's a big one, 150 years.
It really is. It's very special. But since we've already kind of covered everything that I wanted to talk about, why don't we just do something fun?
All right, let's do it.
I discovered, while not doing a deep dive, just a little superficial search, that there are a lot of rules for naming your racehorse.
Okay.
Yes, and there are strategies they use. For example, they might incorporate part of the mom and dad's name. There are rules about not being, two racehorses cannot have the same name, although if a horse stops racing, that name might then go back into circulation. It could be fair game. It's very technical.
Gotcha.
We're going to ignore all that. Let's just
do
come
it.
up with our own
it's our show.
racehorse names.
I mean, we've
Yeah.
already released it on the wrong day. All the rules are gone.
That's right.
There's no. Do you remember that commercial, that Little Caesars commercial, where that guy goes in and he's ordering and they say something? He's like, "There's no rules," and he starts taking off his shirt, and the guy in the back goes, "Put your shirt on." He goes, "There's one rule." So that's it's so funny.
Well, I don't remember that, but I
It's
certainly
so
enjoyed
funny.
your telling of it.
There's one rule.
So let's think of our racehorse names.
Oh my goodness. Do we want to have a racehorse for each of us, or are we coming up with the Scandalwater racehorse
Let's
name?
come up with a Scandalwater.
All
one.
right, our
Okay.
Scandalwater
Scandalwater,
horse.
Okay.
Ooh, so we like
let's see.
history, we like entertainment, we can take
We've got tea. We're
we've got
spilling the
tea.
tea. We've got okay.
what if he was like, and it's a guy horse, his tortee.
Histor tea. That's
Histor
cute.
tea.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Or let's see.
Does he need two names or can it be just one?
Citation.
Citation.
affirmed.
Oh yeah,
we've
Secretariat,
got-
Seabiscuit.
we've
We got that. Although I did really like the horse that was just John Henry. I really liked
yeah.
that one. That was just straight up, just like this is just a regular name.
Yeah,
You know,
Teapot, except it sounds like he would be
yeah.
a little pot-bellied. He doesn't seem like he'd be fast.
he'd be my kind of little horse. He'd be just, he'd be out there doing his
Teapot.
best.
Yeah, come on, Teapot.
Come on,
You
Teapot.
go, Teapot. Steamy.
Steamy Teapot. He's just the gate flies open. He's just like dope. We're like, that's our
He's
baby.
like, where's my biscuits? You promised me a scone.
That's funny. That's the kind of horse I'd have.
Okay.
I love it.
All right. Well, so our two choices. We have Steamy Teapot or just Teapot. And what was the first one again?
His tortilla.
His tortilla. Go his tortilla. That one has more oomph behind it.
But it's
Okay.
a little hard to say. My eyes are watering.
Okay. All right.
Steamy Teapot.
Well, there you have it, guys.
Oh
You
my
know what? If you ever see one of our horses in a race,
Then we are doing way better than we have ever let on.
and bet on him.
Oh, yeah. Bet
All
on
right.
that little potbelly horse. He's going to be having a great time. He's going to come out the gate strong, waiting for his scone.
Oh, I love it.
I do.
All right, well, here you go. Let's do a big old cheers.
Let's do it.
To Churchill Downs.
Yes.
You guys have kept this tradition going for 150 years. It's historic. It's impressive. It's amazing.
Yes.
Go, baby, go. And
Yes.
cheers to you.
Cheers.
If you love what we do, please rate and review our show. Or you can become a supporter by making a donation through buymeacoffee.com/scandalwaterpod. Whether a single gift or a recurring monthly donation, it would go a long way towards supporting our work and allowing us to keep the tea brewing.
At our website, www.scandalwaterpodcast.com, you can submit questions or your own story ideas, access our sources and show notes, see the merch we offer for sale, and more. You can join the Scandal Water community through our Scandal Water Podcast Facebook page or follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Scandal Water Podcast.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown.
That's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music. Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reith, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening.
Steamy Teapot says cheers. I'm just envisioning the little
When I said teapot, I pictured his figure.
All right, I'm turning it off.
Okay.